kind of on here. Okay, everybody, we are live once again. Welcome back to the Paranormal Graveyard with Roger Belt and my lovely partner, Miss Christina Corsetti.
Hello, everybody.
And tonight, we are talking about... You want to tell everybody what we're talking about?
We're talking about the creepiest things kids say to their parents. So what is the creepiest thing a young child has ever said to you? Take a gander at what these kids had to say and see if you can sleep tonight. We'll just jump off in there.
We'll take off.
Sure. My daughter had an imaginary friend named Sally. She told me once about how Sally was in jail for chopping her mom's head off.
Yeah.
My daughter, when we were home alone one night, Mommy, who is that man on the ceiling?
See,
Yep.
when kids say things, you better listen to them because they don't, especially if they're really young, you know, a lot of times what they're saying, they ain't making that stuff up.
Oh, absolutely not.
You know,
They say the weirdest things, too.
yeah. Well, how long would it take a kid to say, even though they have some vivid imaginations, how long would it take a kid to think something like that up?
Exactly. You know, depending on age and where they are and stuff.
Okay, continue.
The shadow man keeps talking to me at my window. I was reading a story to my daughter when she suddenly slammed it shut, point to an empty doorway, and screamed, "You get out of here. You've killed enough people."
Wow. Now, that would definitely be creepy.
Especially when it's an empty doorway.
Right.
I need to get my hands on a giant penis so I can put this fire out all the way.
Okay, now
Kids
where's a
say
kid
the
gonna
damnedest
talk like
things.
that? Yeah, right.
You know? Let's see. Daddy, can we get rid of the kid hanging in my closet? I asked her what she was talking about, and she told me about a teenage boy who was hanging by a belt around his neck in her closet. I went to her closet. There was nothing there, and she said he only is there when I'm not around.
That would figure.
And there are 3 dead kids buried in our backyard. They told me where we could find them.
So, do you go out in the backyard with a shovel and start digging, or what?
I guess you would have to.
Well, I mean, I could see you calling up the sheriff's office and saying, "Hey, you know, my kid just told me some ghost told me there's 3 bodies buried in my backyard."
Would you go with the shovel? I would.
You know, I'd have to get a shovel and start digging, and if I turned up one of them, then I'd call the sheriff.
Authorities.
Hey, you know, you ain't gonna believe how I found out about this, but
Yeah.
excuse me, y'all. I'm in rough shape right now, but I will do my best to not cough too much, I hope. Okay, my 5-year-old son once looked up at me while we were watching a movie and said, "I think I remember coming out of your no-no." Mommy, there's a kid covered in blood in my bedroom and he won't go away. My 4-year-old shook me awake one night and asked if she could sleep with me because tonight the old woman at the window was being mean for some reason.
Wow.
I love this one. An 8-year-old I used to teach had a hard time with eye contact and appropriate touch. He looked me straight in the eyes one morning, not missing a beat, and told me, "You know, I think you'd look a lot better if you were dead in my basement." Now, how creepy is that?
Yeah.
Mom, why is that lady from the cemetery sitting in my room? Oh, no.
That's a good one.
2 years ago, my doorbell rang. When I answered, there was a little kid, 4 or 5, standing there that I didn't recognize. Before I could say anything, she yelled, "Just so you know, it's your turn to die." As she disappeared around the corner, I followed but couldn't see her anywhere. Luckily, I didn't die. My 5-year-old handed me a rock and said, "You can use this for your grave." I don't understand that.
When people pass away, you can put stones on people's graves for certain reasons.
Okay, I've never heard of that. I've heard of putting coins.
Yeah, you can put stones as well. My daughter, when we were home alone one night, says, "Mommy, who's that man on the ceiling?" My kids, ages 5, 4, and 3, were constantly talking about the bloody girls in their rooms. They each go into detail about them, their names, their clothes, what they talk about. It started when my oldest had just turned 3. He said that he had been in a small green car that fell in water. The water turned red, and their mommy and daddy were really sad. He said they looked like their rooms because they had fun toys. My son, 3 at the time, threw a huge tantrum when we were taking a leave in the house because he didn't want to crash and die. After about 10 minutes, he just stopped and was ready to go. As we were walking out of the house, there was a very bad accident on the street in front of our house, right where we would have been driving if we hadn't thrown this fit. Now that's a good one, because that
Yeah.
happens a lot. The shadow man keeps talking to me out my window. And my almost 4-year-old burst in on me in the bathroom. When I screamed for her to get out, he said, "Mommy, it's just a coochie. I see them all the time."
Uh, my 2-year-old talks and walks in his sleep. About a month after his second birthday, I heard him talking in his sleep in the middle of the night, so I thought, "Oh, cute, I will go listen." Peeked in, and he was sitting bolt upright in bed, eyes wide open, hands folded in lap. He said, "Naughty, naughty mummy, naughty daddy. No more mummy, no more daddy." Then he laughed really creepily, lay down, and started snoring.
That's cute.
Now there's your bedtime story, people. After finding a dead baby bird in the driveway from a nest up above, my 4-year-old told me he knows where to bury it so it will come back alive. Pet cemetery, anybody?
Yep.
Daddy, when can we get rid of that kid hanging in my closet? Yep, we already did that one. My son was crying in bed at 3 a.m. and tells us he is afraid because there is a man in his bed. We ask him about the man and tell him to ask the man to go away. The following day, he tells us the man's name is Frank. My husband's uncle, who died the night before, also later that week, we were driving along in our van in complete silence, and my son said, "Frank's here." There are 3 dead kids buried in our backyard. Yep, they told me where to find them.
Yeah, there might be a few doubles. I tried to pick them out.
Yeah.
It happens. My child comes into the house with a baby gecko latched onto his finger. He proudly says, "Look, Mom, he likes my finger." I say, "Get him out before he gets loose in the house." My 3-year-old then says, "No, I'm going to put him in the drawer with all the baby frogs." "What drawer has all the baby frogs in it?" The one in your closet," he says. I recovered 3 baby frogs from my bathing suit drawer. My brother was giving all his kids candy. One of my daughter's friends was over, and my brother asked her, "You want some candy, little girl?" She said, "You're supposed to be behind a bush when you say that."
Oh, that's creepy.
My son was crying in the room saying, "Mommy, Elmo keeps talking to me." I went in his room and Tickle Me Elmo was laughing. He had no batteries.
Okay.
My 5-year-old son once looked at me while we were watching a movie and said, "I think I remember it coming under your no-no." Yep, we did that one. "Mommy, there's a kid covered in blood in my bedroom and he won't go away."
Angela said, my granddaughter keeps talking to Charlie. We don't know a Charlie. We
Uh,
asked, who's Charlie? She said, a ghost. Okay, my son Mason told my fiance he was going to cut his heart out and eat it. He's 3. Chucky? The first time I brought my boyfriend over, my daughter walked over. She was 3. Looked him dead in the eyes and said, I think it's a good idea to take your pants off now. Okay. When my son was 3, he told me that he really likes his new daddy. He's really nice. My husband is his one and only daddy. I asked, what is that? He replied, my old daddy was really mean. He stabbed me in the back and I died, but I really like my new daddy. He's never done that to me. Now that's creepy enough. Okay, my 4-year-old shook me awake one night and asked if, yeah, we did that. An 8-year-old I used to teach, we done that. My 7-year-old son asked me, so Mom, when I'm 41 like you, how old will you be? I replied, I'll be 75. Without missing a beat, my 5-year-old daughter added, or dead.
Last week, I asked my kids what they wanted for Christmas. My son said, "For Christmas, I want you to live forever." Then my daughter says, "I'd rather have a pink iPod."
Ow.
My 6-year-old was crying in her bedroom. It took lots of asking, and she finally told me that the strange man had showed up and told her that I would be dead before midnight.
Oh.
Mom, why is that lady from the cemetery sitting in my room? Okay, a friend's daughter, 3 at the time, told my friend in a very quiet voice, "I will put a towel over your face and send you to live with Jesus."
Wow.
Now, if you notice, a lot of these, they're only 3 to 5 years old, these kids.
Yeah. That's
You
what
know,
I'm
where
saying.
would they come up with this stuff?
It would be hard for them to just make up stuff like this. Were they okay? If you have a 3-year-old, and what was they? Yeah, 3 years old is the age limit here on this one.
Yep.
Now, for a 3-year-old to come up with something like that, they would have to hear something like that, and I'm sure
Exactly.
that this kid's mother wasn't telling him, "Hey, put a towel over my head and send me to meet Jesus." So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Where they come up with this stuff is even creepier than actually what they say. Because you got to think about where the heck did they hear this?
They come up with the truth.
Well, yeah.
Let's see, are you going to say hi to Uncle Chris? By my 3-year-old when I was watching her jumping on the trampoline. Uncle Chris drowned in a lake 9 years before she was ever born, and no one in our family talks about it, ever. I asked her where he was, and she pointed to the garage and said, "He tells me to be careful." Whoa.
As she pointed to the old wood stove in the middle of our front room, Jimmy said that was where he did it. I asked her who Jimmy was and what he was talking about. She said Jimmy is the guy who comes and talks to me at night. He said he killed his mom right there. My daughter was 5. I work at a summer camp. Okay, where's Freddie? Not Freddie, Jason. I work at a summer camp, and one day I was playing with this kid who was jumping off of things and onto me. I said, hey, be careful. If you kill me, I can't play with you anymore. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, no, but I can play with you.
Huh.
Now, that's a little bit on the scary side. How would you like to have a friend like that to play with?
I know, right?
I woke up to find my 3-year-old son lying in bed next to me. I asked how he got in my bed, and he said he came to protect me from the light eyes that were standing over me while I was sleeping. I was babysitting a family friend's kid, and it was time the two of us in the home, and at the time the two of us in the home, she looked around and whispered to me, we're not alone in this house. Okay, now I didn't say what the age of this kid was. My mother was babysitting my daughter while I was at a doctor's appointment and said, oh no, Grandma, Mama's not coming anymore today. She was in a bad accident. She can't come get us. I had indeed been in an accident that almost killed me at that exact time. None of my family had yet been notified. I was babysitting and didn't know how to turn off the TV. So it was just static. My 4-year-old cousin stared into the static and said, I see the monster.
The poltergeist stuff right there.
I'm saying, "Rrr."
My sister Haley was born exactly 2 months after our great-grandmother died. One day, Haley woke up and informed us it was her 95th birthday. When we tried to reason with her, she started crying, saying that her real name was Irene, which was the Grammy's name, not Haley. This lasted all day, and the next day she didn't remember anything.
Wow.
On our way to the theme park, my little cousin once told me, you're going to die today. Now, my little cousin said her imaginary friend Chucky told her to kill her dad. It turns out that they used to have a pool in their backyard that was covered up after the last owner committed suicide. His name was Choi, but my little cousin couldn't pronounce it, so she called him Chucky.
Me, Chucky.
We were on.
Yeah, Chucky's always doing something.
Oh yeah. We were on a boat on vacation, and my 4-year-old cousin got really close to me and whispered in my ear, I want to be a doctor so I can watch children die.
Oh.
Ooh.
Ah.
In the middle of 4 years old, too.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night, my little sister turned to me and said, do you hear them talking?
Kids can hear things, trust me. I think that you, well, I'm not saying you, but you know what I'm saying, adults in general will block. But some kids they don't know how to block, so they're just not open.
Yeah, they don't know any better.
And they will pick up on things that we don't pay no attention to.
Absolutely.
That's why if a really, like I said, for a really young kid, 3 or 4 years old, tells you something creepy like that, you better listen. I'm sorry about that. Okay. My son told me about a dead woman with blue skin, no hair, and black eyes, who supposedly lived in our old apartment. He said he watched her follow us outside and try to get in our car, but there was no room, so she stood outside and watched us leave while waving goodbye. Okay. I was babysitting a 2-year-old boy. We were playing with blocks, and he was laughing when he suddenly turned to me and said, "I'm going to shoot your head off." We played hide and seek that night, and I was terrified of him finding me.
Huh.
My 3-year-old son and I were walking in a crowded mall. He likes to say hi to everyone. He started hi, hi, hi as people walked by. But out of nowhere, he pointed to a man and said, "You're going to die." And then he continued with his hellos. Super creepy.
Yeah.
How would you like that? Be going through a mall, be like crowds of people. Go, "Hi, hello, hi, hi." You're gonna die. Hi, hello, hi. Hey. We're both kind of down with it.
There goes my 8 sneezes.
But we'll make it through. We hope you guys don't mind the coughing and carrying on. Hello, Divergent Path. Awesome, Melinda and Matt. Hopefully both of y'all are here. Okay. I'm a nanny for a toddler who's still learning to talk. As we walked through our local cemetery, which is normal in our neighborhood, she pointed at the area above the grass saying, "People, look, people," over and over again. When I was really little, I pointed to a tree outside my house and said to my family, "That tree is going to die." No one thought anything of it, but the next morning it randomly fell over and crashed my grandpa's car.
Oh, wow. My 3-year-old son was softly singing while he was coloring. I stopped to listen, but I never heard the song before. I asked where he learned it, and he said the lady in my bedroom sang it to me.
Okay.
My sister described her imaginary friend saying, "He sits on my bed and waits for his mom. He's not allowed to go home by himself because of his arm." I asked what happened to his arm, and she said, "His mom ran him over when he was drawing with chalk. That's why he was always crying, because he doesn't like being dead."
Ugh.
When I was about 4, my mom found me in the bathroom with all my Barbies, making them float face down in the bath. When she asked what I was doing, I replied, "The man in the wardrobe told me if I didn't do it, it would be my turn to swim face down."
Oh, creepy.
I worked with kids on the autism spectrum. One of them said they can see us, but we can't see them.
Now that's definitely creepy. But it would be true.
Oh, absolutely. I was tucking my 2-year-old in. He said, "Goodbye, Dad." I said, "No, we say goodnight." He said, "I know, but this time it's goodbye." Had to check on him a few times to make sure he was still there.
Oh. Okay, for the people that have just came in, Matt and Melinda, I'm sorry. Blake is in the chat room. We're talking about creepy things kids say, and some of them pretty daggum creepy. Just saying. Okay, my mother told me that when I was younger, newborn until 4 or 5, I used to wake up from my slumber every time we passed a cemetery in the car. Apparently, once I was able to talk, I used to make her turn up the music when we passed because the voices were too loud and I couldn't listen to so many at once. Still freaks her out, makes me question my sanity at that age. My 4-year-old nephew was going to his mom with a toy plastic hammer, pretending he was going to hit her. My wife said, "Don't hit your mom with a hammer." And he denied he was going to, but then he came up to my wife and whispered, "If it was a real hammer, I would." Ugh.
Wow.
Someday I will have a farm and I will have some animals like a rat and some mice. I will have a little pecker chicken with a little pecker thing, and he will pecker my head and make a hole, and it will tickle. Now that's creepy just because of the way it's worded. Ah, go away with your little pecker thing. Okay, someday I will have a farm. That's what I just said. Okay. Visiting a friend's new baby, and my son's first words were, "When will that baby die?" I was watching my son play with his trucks on the floor and smiled and said, "I love you." He responded, "I love you too. I actually don't feel like killing you right now." When my son was much younger, he would talk about the woman who lives in our wall and misses her family. We'd find him upstairs with a pile of blankets just laying there, and he'd say he was laying down with the lonely woman. It was about 18 years ago. He is now 22. Once said to his mom, "My sister, I am happy because you are my mommy now. I like you more than my last mommy. I want you to be my mommy next time, too. Promise me you'll be my mommy." I have a 4-year-old daughter, almost 5. She is at best a chatterbox. She talks about lots of things that don't quite make sense, but she is extremely intelligent. My husband and I discussed the possibility of having a younger sibling with her and how she would feel about it. She said, "I would be happy because your other baby will come back." I didn't understand what she meant and asked her to explain what she meant. Before I was here, they asked me to pick a mommy. I picked you. I asked her why, and she said, "I picked you because you were sad. Your other baby got sick and you were sad. I picked you to make you happy." I just started sobbing at that point. She said, I think that baby will come back and then we can have a boy baby too." This happened a few days ago. Our daughter does not know that I lost a little boy just before she was conceived. We've never mentioned it, and there's no possible way she could know. I'm still kind of freaked out, but almost comforted in a way. Maybe he will pick me again.
Because you do choose your parents.
Yeah. Well, I'm
You know?
confident in that anyway. That you do actually uh, pick your parents and all that.
Absolutely. While changing my daughter in front of the opened closet door, she kept looking around me and laughing. I asked her what was so funny. She says, "The man." To which I replied, "What man?" She then pointed at the closet and said, "The man with the snake neck." I turned around and nothing was there. I'm afraid to look into the history of my house to see if anyone hung themselves in the closet. At least she wasn't scared. Not to me, but to his grandmother. He was cuddling with her and being very sweet. He was about 3 at the time. He takes her face in his hands and brings his face close to hers and tells her that she's very old and will die soon. Then he makes a point of looking at the clock.
Okay.
Dad, remember that time we died?
Oh.
I was on a bus recently and were stopped outside a walk-in clinic. A little girl in the seat in front of me turned to her dad and said, "Death is the poor man's doctor." And that was that. My 5-year-old son asked me last week, "What do you see through the black circles in my eyes when you're controlling me when I'm at school?"
I still like the other one. Death is a poor man's doctor. That's about the dang truth.
Yeah, right.
Okay. My coworker's 4-year-old daughter always thought that the rattling of the water pipes in the kitchen cupboards were white wolves, and the sound always scared her. One day she was sitting at the kitchen table and she said, "Mom, the white wolves aren't bad. They're our friends." Her mom encouraged the idea by saying, "Yes, the white wolves are protecting us. They are our friends." Then her daughter added in, "They're our friends, but not the man who crawls on the floor and stands by my bed." Okay, now all you guys in the chat room and ladies, just remember that these are just stories. These are things that kids have said. So you can go to bed and sleep like a little baby tonight. Don't worry about it. I work in a preschool. Creepy stuff gets said and done all the time. The one that sticks out to me happened last year. There is a small kitchenette area in our classroom that the kids use during free time for playing house or whatever, pretend games they think up. There was one little girl that I was keeping a close eye on, mostly because of how withdrawn from the other kids she was. I noticed she was playing with a baby doll in the kitchenette, rocking it back and forth and singing to it. She then took the baby, shoved it into the plate oven, and slammed the door. She turned around, looked straight at me, and said, "Sometimes bad babies go in timeout." In the creepiest little girl voice I've ever heard before, smiling and running off. That one kind of shook me, I would imagine. So her idea of timeout is to bake them for a while?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, how creepy is that? Oh, note to all you people in chat, don't buy your kids a toy bake oven. Just saying. Um, my noticeably pregnant sister and I were having a conversation at the dining room table. My 4-year-old son was also present and asked my sister if there was a baby in her belly. She affirmed. He completely straight-faced slid from his chair and headed for the kitchen saying, "We need to get it out. I'll go get the knife." I don't even know.
My 3-year-old nephew was at my cottage. He asked me numerous times about the girl over there while pointing at one of the back bedrooms. The place is small and there's definitely nobody there, so I just dismissed it as a really active imagination because he has a lot of imaginary friends. Then some friends are visiting and they have a daughter around the same age. She has never met my nephew. Twice in one day she asked about the pretty girl while pointing at the exact same room. Definitely caught me out and I didn't know what to think. Then at Christmas, my family was over my place and my nephew pointed a picture of my wife and asked if she's coming to visit us here or does she just stay at the cottage. My wife died 10 years ago. Personally, I don't really believe in the paranormal stuff, so it's just probably just my logical brain putting together a bunch of kids rambling, but definitely got my attention. When I was around 6 years old, my dad's best friend committed suicide. We called him Joe, for the sake of the story. Obviously, it was a very rough and emotional time for my dad. Joe was my dad's best man at his wedding, and one guy who was always there for him. After my dad got married, he and my mother left Joe and the town, and they went and started a life outside of the town where they grew up in. After years of moving around California, my family eventually moved to Utah, when my father worked for a successful internet business. Joe stayed behind in Washington. Because my family was so far away from their old life with Joe, there wasn't a lot of foresight warning that Joe intended of ending his own life. So Joe's sister apparently had been blaming Joe's wife for his brother's suicide. Joe and his wife drank a lot of booze and probably as a result fought a lot. My father always said they were an passionate couple. Yes, they would fight often, but he hardly knew two other individuals who were so completely in love. For this reason, he didn't believe it. A few days after Joe committed suicide, his widow called up my father, sobbing about how she thought it was her fault. After about an hour of trying to console her, he told her, "If there was a way for me to talk to Joe now, I guarantee you that he would tell you that he loved you and that it wasn't your fault that he ended his life." Crying, she still didn't believe him, but she thanked him for the kind words and let my father go. My dad was obviously distraught after a long, hysteric conversation. He had been down in his office for a while, and he decided to come up and check on his kids while making a pot of coffee to take his mind off of things. We were all supposed to be napping, but he thought he'd peek his head into our rooms to make sure we were safe, maybe to try a little smile or brightness to add to the day. Sure enough, when my dad got to my room, I was fast asleep on my bed. He went to my brother's room, and he was also sleeping. Finally, he checks on my sister, who was sleeping and smudgely as an angel. He decides to go back towards my room and into the kitchen to make some coffee. As he walks by my room, he notices a whimper. He turned around and enters my room. He finds me weeping. I was 5 years old, so the way I was crying seemed odd to him. Normally, a 5-year-old wouldn't cry drastically or over dramatically. I wasn't. I was just sitting on the side of my bed weeping. My dad enters my room and says, "Maddie, what's up? Why are you crying?" And then that I stopped crying for a moment, looked up at him with teary eyes and say, "Rick, it's not her fault. I love her. It's not her fault." With that, I stopped crying, rolled over, back into my bed, fell swiftly back to sleep.
Wow. So he actually got what he asked for.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Who's eating cookies over there? Not sharing with us.
Who's eating cookies?
Somebody's eating cookies.
Oh, it's eating cookies?
Nope, but good cookies.
Who
Oh, I want some cookies. Cookie! When I was about 4, I would remember talking to Mr. Peterson. Whenever I was at my grandmother's house, he looked like a hobo from the Great Depression and had a guitar and sang me old-timey blues. He told me that he died when he fell off a train he was riding whilst drunk on moonshine. I stopped seeing him when I was about 6. Anyway, 6 months ago, I found my dad's old acoustic guitar and started playing. And my little cousin told me, "Mr. Peterson is proud of you," and left. I don't know what to think about that. I was preparing to give a lecture on heart anatomy, PowerPoint, with my 3-year-old next to me. He asked what that large thing was on top of the heart. I explained the term vessel and the aorta. He looked down and said he couldn't see his aorta. I explained, "No, the aorta is inside your body. You can't see it now." He said, "That's okay, Mommy. Maybe when you're dead, I'll look at yours." My 4-year-old says to us at dinner, "My other dad is visiting tonight." I said, "Oh, yeah, when?" "Oh, you can't see him, only I can, and he comes at 13 o'clock. I was babysitting my friend's toddler once, and he drew me a picture. It was basically a squiggle, so I asked him what it was, and he said it's a cat than a vampire. I said, does the cat turn into a vampire? And he looked me dead in the eye and said, it does if you do science to it.
No. When I was
Creepy
about
kids.
when I was about 3, we had a cat that had stillborn kittens. I asked my father if we could make crosses for them, which we did. As he was making them, I asked, "Aren't those too small?" "Dad, what do you mean?" "Me. Aren't we going to nail them to them?" "Dad." After several moments of silence, "We're not going to do that." "Oh." My daughter saw me getting dry skin off my shoulders after a bad sunburn and asked if she could keep my skin flakes and put them in a jar so when I die, she can make Mummy's mask and remember me always.
Oh,
We had just moved into a new house and 2 kids showed up at the door. When I asked if I could help them, one of them said, "Our mom wants us to tell you the old people who used to live here are buried at the end of the road." They ran off, and I've never seen those kids again to this day.
that's creepy enough.
When my daughter was 3, she woke up one morning looking rough. I asked if she slept okay and said, "No, Papa. Mike kept me up all night pinching my toes." My dad, her papa, Mike, passed away 8 years before she was born, and that's how he used to wake up my brother and I when we were little. At my great-uncle's funeral, she asked when he was going to turn into a zombie.
Oh. Rhodey says chocolate chip baked in Melinda's Easy Bake Oven. um, are these doll cookies by chance? Just
They
thought
what cookies?
doll cookies.
Doll cookies?
Yeah. We were talking about the little girl putting the doll in the toy oven.
Yeah.
She said they were cookies baked in her Easy Bake Oven. Anyway,
Oh, excuse me.
my son telling me in the sweetest of voices, in a consoling tone, "Don't worry, Mommy, I'll never murder you." From my neighbor's 3-year-old, "When's the baby going to come out of your tummy? I didn't even know that I was pregnant yet." One night, I let my then 3-year-old sleep with me because my husband was gone. It was dead quiet in the house, and she whispers, "I've got you where I want you, and now I'm going to eat you." Okay. When my son was 3, he came and climbed into bed with us, crying. I asked what was wrong. He said that the big fat man with a bloody hole in his head kept trying to open his window. My then 4-year-old daughter came up to me, put her hands on my belly, and said, "Mommy, you have a baby in your belly." Come to find out 2 weeks later that I was 3 weeks pregnant. She also said it was a boy, even though she really wanted a baby sister, and she was right. She also did something similar to 2 teachers at daycare. They called her the baby whisperer.
No.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Hey, she knows.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I don't think I would want some strange kid coming up to my wife, putting her hands on her belly and going, "You're pregnant.
Yeah,
You're
well.
going to have a little girl."
My best friend Lisa died when I was pregnant with my daughter. When my daughter was 3, I heard her laughing. I said, What are you laughing at?" She said, "Auntie Lisa is making silly faces at me and playing with me." When my daughter was 4, I heard her singing a song that my mom always sang to me when I was young. I asked her where she learned it. She told me that her grandma taught it to her. My mom passed away 6 years before my daughter was born. "Mommy, why is that man by the fan staring at me?" We were in bed about to sleep. There was nothing by the by the standing fan. I don't like that damn fan. When she was about 18 months old, my grandpa George died. We had a photo of my grandparents on the fridge right alongside those alphabet magnets that all toddlers have. The day of the funeral, I was getting her breakfast ready while she played with the magnets. I turned around and she spelled George right under my grandparents' photo.
Wow.
And that's 18 months old.
Right. Divergent path asked if those kids had black eyes from the story earlier. You were talking about the two kids that ran off. Weren't seen again.
Oh yeah.
Well, if that were the case, I would think they would have asked to come in and use the phone or something. But who knows? Okay. We were at a camp out, and suddenly my 3-year-old yells out, "Uncle Ricky keeps touching my wiener." They were roasting hot dogs, and my brother Rick about had a heart attack on the spot. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I recently had an ectopic. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume so.
Pregnancy. I've been really sad. My little boy told me, "Mommy, I can be the baby in your tummy, but you have to eat me first." Sorry about that, y'all. I can be the baby in your tummy, but you have to eat me first. Now, how creepy is that? My 5-year-old has stuck to his same story since he was 3. I remember my last mom and dad died, and you found me. Remember, I was on the side of the road when you found me as a baby. I had a little sister before, but she's dead too. Okay. I was pregnant and working as a preschool teacher. One of the little girls was very curious about my pregnancy, so we were talking about it. Somehow we got on the subject of how the baby might come out. She looked me dead in the face and said, "You know, they're going to have to cut it out of you." As you can imagine, I was kind of surprised, but managed to deflect and say, "Well, if they don't cut it out of me, what are some other ways that the baby might come out?" Again, she looked at me dead in the face and said, "I think that baby might just crawl right out of your mouth." There you go. Now that gives a whole new meaning to childbirth.
I know, right? Can you imagine?
No, I couldn't, actually.
The other day on the train, my 4-year-old daughter told me, "Mama, I love you forever until you die, but when you die, I hate you." I asked her why she would hate me, and she said, "Because then you'll just be bones, and I'll let Juno," which is our dog, "chew on them."
Oh.
My 3-year-old daughter, watching me put a panty liner on, said, "Mom, is that a Band-Aid for your butt?" When my older brother was 2, he wouldn't go by any other name than John and would insist on being called that name. His name is Brent. When he was 4 years old, he asked my mommy where Yoko was. My mom told him she was doing well living in New York. Once Brent understood this, he was relieved and was okay without continuing on as Brent. My brother has gone on to be a talented musician and artist. With friends in the celebrity realm, he was conceived 3 months after John Lennon's death. That's wild.
Yeah. Okay. Ew. Baby back ribs. That's bad. It's funny though. I love how some of this is worded. because people, when they try to abbreviate stuff,
Yeah.
it just sounds funny. And I'm going to read this like it's abbreviated so that you can get my meaning here. My 3-year-old daughter, my 3-year-old daughter said, "You're the best mommy I have had so far." I said, "I am the only mommy you've had." As she walked away, she said, "That's what all the other mommies said too."
Oh.
September 11th, 2001 was my son's first day of kindergarten. He was very excited the day before, but when I woke him up, he immediately started crying uncontrollably and said over and over, "Mommy, it's going to be such a bad, bad day." I tried to convince him otherwise and told him he could watch cartoons while I got ready for work. I sat him, still weeping, on the couch and turned the TV on just as they showed the second plane hitting the tower on New York. About 2 months ago, my 6-year-old son says, "Mommy, when you die, I will put you in a glass box on my dining room table. Don't worry, I will make sure my wife knows how to dust so you won't get dirty." "Mommy, the lady in the white car is okay. She didn't die. There was an angel in the car with her." My son, age 2, an hour later, I turned on the news and a lady in a white Cadillac had driven off the Portland Bridge but swam to safety. She reported seeing a bright light that broke her window and urged her to swim. Emergency personnel said she should have drowned.
Mm. That was definitely an angel.
Right.
Okay. My ex's son gave me a hug, looked up at me, and said, "I hope it hurts when you die." Dad, my girlfriend is a month late. When I was about 2 weeks pregnant and didn't even know it, my 3-year-old daughter came and patted my belly and said, "Great grandpa wants you to know there's a baby boy in there and that you need to take good care of this one so you don't both have to go to heaven when he was born." She has no living great grandparents, and I did end up being pregnant.
Huh.
I'm watching you make a sandwich so that when you die, I'll know how to do it.
Now that's creepy enough.
My sons were about 2 and 4 when their pet goldfish died. I attempted to use the situation as an opportunity to discuss death and mortality. After I finished my explanation, my 4-year-old looked up with me with his big blue eyes and asked, "Mummy, someday will you die?" My heart filled with love and little sadness, knowing this was one of those pivotal moments when the first bit of childhood innocence was lost. And I told him, "Yes, someday Mummy will die." "Good," he said, with a total deadpan expression, and walked out of the room. Later, when we were about to flush the fish, he asked if we could eat him instead. I said, "No, we don't eat pets because we love them." And he said, "When you die, I'm going to eat you."
Oh, oh. Now that's just downright freaking creepy. Matt said with barbecue sauce. uh, I was putting my daughter to bed one night when she was around 2. She said, "Mommy, who's that?" "Who's what?" I asked. "Those people talking to me in my closet. Who is that?" My 2-year-old said, "There is a fairy in his room." He points to the corner with the air conditioner. He says it most nights. One day I was showing him some old family photos. I show him one of my mother, and he points to it and says, "Fairy, fairy bedroom." The photo was of my mom as a girl. She died 4 years ago. When I was 3, I was sleeping in my parents' bed when I sat straight up and asked Mommy, who is that man in the corner? She was terrified. This happened every night until she went to the corner and talked to him, asking him to leave us alone because he was scaring me. Still believe in ghosts because of this. My mom tells me that when I was a really small child, we would visit my grandfather's house and often spend the night. She says that once in the middle of the night, she woke up and I wasn't in the bed, young enough to co-bed. What?
Maybe with somebody.
And I was standing in the living room with my hand in the air like I was holding someone's hand. And I said something along the lines of not being able to go with you because my mom didn't say I could. We didn't spend the night at my grandfather's house again for another decade.
My kid was in the bathtub one night with the bathroom door open, and I was puttering around in the next room. She called out and said, "Hey, Mommy, who was that blue guy who just walked down the hall?" She said he was tall, thin, and featureless, like the shape of those men on the bathroom door, like at a restaurant. Creeped me out. My son, 6, when asked what he wanted to do when he grew up, said, "I think I want to be a fighter pilot or maybe a funeral worker like my daddy. I'm a software engineer."
Oh,
Getting my 2.5-year-old daughter out of the bath one night and my wife and I briefing her on how important it is she kept her privates clean. She casually replied, "Oh, nobody screws me there." They tried one night. They kicked the door in and tried, but I fought back. I died, and now here I am, she said like it was nothing. My wife and I were catatonic. Little brother said something eerie to my grandma. "I like this mummy better than my last mummy. My last mummy locked me in a room and I drank some paint and died."
oh, okay. Um, Short show tonight, you guys. Only about an hour, but that's okay because I'm feeling pretty rough anyway. But the last one that we have for you, our last couple. My 3-year-old was laying on my chest a few weeks ago, and she said, "I can hear your heart, Mommy." It was much louder when I was inside. There were the poops that didn't come out yet. Okay. Little brother was talking to someone in the living room while I was fixing lunch. I go into the other room and ask him who he's talking to. He's looking at the window and says, "This old lady, she's very funny but doesn't like you." Hope you guys like these creepy little tidbits. Um, you too, Eminem. Eminem. I like to have a bag full of M&Ms. Got some M&Ms? M&Ms, Rhodey, on some M&Ms. Rhodey's got to leave, I'm assuming. Another great creepy show. And good night, peeps. And chat. Okay, Rhodey's got a goatee. Good night, Rhodey.
Good night.
Uh, Anyways, hope everybody enjoyed that. Next Sunday, which is September the 4th, Ghost PM will be talking with Peter James Havlin. I know everybody's going to tune in for that. And then I'm working on, um, I don't have it right here. Let me see if I can yank it up real quick here and I'll tell you. That's not it. No, get out of my face. Okay. Um, Trying to let you guys know what's happening. Get over there. Buried alive. And that's kind of like this situation with the stuff that we were talking about in a way. Um, there's many different reasons behind that, and it's not just meaning, uh, well, you'll see, but it's not just meaning accidentally being buried alive. And then again, some of the stuff I came across will put questions in your head. So y'all want to tune in for that. And until next time, same back channels, same Batman, in my case, Batman. I'm gonna do that. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Snapchat little. That's how I got the profile picture there that everybody sees was through a Snapchat. But I want to get a Snapchat of a Batman face, and then I'm gonna go around humming na 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 na. Everybody's gonna love it. Just trust me. Anyway, uh, had a great time at Old South Pittsburgh with Matt and Melinda, and went to a Civil War battlefield on the way home from there, Dusty and myself, and I actually caught a couple of musket shots on my video camera.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Had a good weekend, and still above ground and kicking, so it's a good week so far. But appreciate everybody in the chat and whoever's not in the chat that's just watching and tagging along with us. Been a lot of fun. We appreciate all of you very much. And having said that, I'm going to say fairly well, and we'll see y'all Sunday.
All right. Good night, everybody.